Dragons. That has been all the talk these past few months, as there are some very serious hints and leaks that are strongly suggesting a dragon-related expansion may be happening quite soon. Whether that would just be a zone, theme of the whole expansion or whatever, we don't really know, but a Dragon Isles addition to World of Warcraft could present a bunch of really cool opportunities to add something really new and unique to the game, really just fresh air. One of these additions, and something that has been speculated upon for over a decade, is a dragon-like playable race. We already know there are draconids out there that are not fully dragons, so is a race or maybe even a more advanced class like this actually possible, something akin to the Demon Hunters? Before we get into the video, I'd like to talk about this video sponsor, Forge and Foster. Generally, I'm not too into watches, but this one just looked super cool. I felt like it was forged by the engineers of Gnomeregan. The one I have, Spectre, is a skeleton watch where you can actually observe the mechanism. It automatically charges with movement, so there are no batteries, and it is built from sapphire crystal glass. Essentially, a luxury watch at a pretty affordable price. If you use my link in the description, you will get a big 20% discount, so if you are in the market for a watch, make sure to check out Forge and Foster. As you're all aware by this point, the so-called Dragon Isles expansion has been all the talk these past few months. Now, as is usually the case, most of them are just troll leaks, but this one seriously has some actual backing, as we have store mounts that usually predict what will happen in the future, we have some data mine textures, bundles, and a few other things that may make this thing possible. Additionally, Blizzard confirmed that in the next expansion, we will be returning to Azeroth, that we will be scaled down a bit, with cosmological battles being more in the background as opposed to us, going directly into the sepulcher of the first ones in the behind the scenes. You may have also noticed that they added cross-faction stuff, which has been requested pretty much since forever, and they just came out saying that they now want to add a bunch of things people have requested over the years, but they previously said no. Well, Dragon Isles has been in the background since forever, and really, it does seem to be quite a popular expansion idea right now, with many people backing it up. Personally, my main concern with this dragon team is that dragons really lost their purpose all the way back in Cataclysm, and they really are not all that important, so I was thinking, how much content could they really extract out of this? But when I further examined the entire situation, I realized that I really was wrong, and that this is just a gold mine of potential. As you're aware, the Dragon Isles were supposed to be an actual thing in the Eastern Kingdoms back when World of Warcraft was just released, but it was scrapped, and it was supposed to be overrun by the Old Gods, with a gigantic Old God temple right in the center. So immediately, we have the entire Old God arcs that really could be an entire expansion itself, and Blizzard already confirmed that they will be returning in the future, very strongly hinting at it. Then, we know all dragons came from the proto-dragons from Northrend, and there is that entire Galakrond storyline that had an entire book about it. A gigantic, monstrous, somehow corrupted dragon that ate his own. Well, now they can explain what it was that corrupted him, what was the source, and maybe this corruption is returning in a big way, which could be a new major threat. As the location of Dragon Isles is uncertain, it could be near Northrend, which could also add new zones, new races, and they could additionally revamp Northrend as well. As I mentioned in a recent video, many things right now are hinting that Northrend is a big deal, seeing that the Shadowlands connection is there, the Lich King, and it might have some sort of a relation to the World Soul and the Sepulchre where we currently are. So that is a very quick background of how this expansion could be happening, but let's focus on the actual topic at hand. Could a dragon race, playable race, be happening? How likely is it, and how would it actually play out? To start off, immediately, this has actually been planned by Blizzard for a really long time. Back in 2009 BlizzCon, they were asked about a dragon in playable race, and they said something along the lines of, we don't see why they can't be added, it would be really cool to have them, and we could also expand their lore. Obviously, that never happened, but I'm guessing they were strongly considering this with the release of Cataclysm, because that was one dragon-related expansion. This immediately confirms that it isn't some outlandish idea or a race that just wouldn't work at all, and that Blizzard actually already considered adding them. However, what even is a dragon? Before we get too philosophical, this can get a bit confusing as we have a bunch of loose ends, RPG lore, half-retcon stuff, but in the simplest terms, all dragons originate from the proto-drakes in Northrend, those guys you probably ran into in Wrath of the Lich King. Now, dragons were split into a bunch of dragon fights, and those dragon fights were split even further with some experiments and new dragon fights being created. Obviously, we are not going to be playing as the aspects, but we have two possible scenarios that I can definitely see happening. First is being actual dragons, and second is playing the dragon kin. Let's summarize both and see what would make the most amount of sense. So, as you may be aware, dragons have humanoid forms. We have seen this since forever. We have seen a bunch of them, everything from gnomes to humans. If they went this route, then they could do something akin to a playable dragon class as opposed to race. This could be similar to the demon hunters or maybe even the Worgen. Something similar to the Worgen curse, just that it wouldn't really be a curse. Now, it is impossible to speculate how this could happen because we have no idea if this expansion will even be a thing, but it is crucial to know that it is 100% plausible. Dragon aspects could get the power returned to them and then they could empower us, or maybe new dragon power wouldn't be so centralized, but we could get some sort of an order of the dragon that could allow people to join and just transform into dragons. This could really be an excellent class, and it could work with pretty much every other playable race, as we have seen dragons transforming into a bunch of them. This way we could get a racial flying form, which would be completely unique to World of Warcraft. How you have the humans turning into Worgen and running, well, you could turn into a dragon and fly, similar to that mount we already have. This could be the case if they went a class route. However, a more likely possibility, in my opinion, is a brand new race, as I mentioned, the Dragon Kin. So, the Dragon Kin are sort of a vague group. They're essentially all creatures that descend from dragons, including dragons, so everything from drakes to the bipedal draconid. As already mentioned, us being dragons, let's talk about the draconids, or the reptilian-like humanoids that are also dragons in a way. This lore is kinda vague, half RPG, half retcon stuff, but the info we have could literally be perfect for a brand new playable race. As to know by definition, the draconid are not actually dragons, they're something like half dragons. As the lore states, they are mortals that were empowered by dragons, and you become a draconid in generally two ways. Either you get intentionally transformed by a dragon, or it is a side effect of spending a lot of time with dragons. Obviously super vague, but damn, this could be a gold mine for new lore in the new playable race. As I mentioned previously, they could go the route of dragons empowering us and giving us a draconid form to protect Azeroth. You know, the entire story of the dragons originally were there to protect the world soul, but now we can utilize this form to continue their mission. However, an even better storyline is if they added some sort of a humanoid race that became the Draconids. Imagine this scenario. We don't really know where the Dragon Isles are, but lore-wise they more than likely exist. This was confirmed in game by Rexxar and Rathian. Since they're currently undiscovered on the map, they could seriously be located near Northrend. This would explain why the proto-drakes were all in Northrend. Maybe some type of migration happened from there. Maybe an even worse Galakrond is present on the Isles. Well, as you know, Vrykul, for example, and I'm just taking them as one of the possible races, they are known for traveling across the world. We have seen the merchants in Zandalar, we have seen them on the Broken Isles, they reach the Eastern Kingdoms, and they are in Northrend. It would totally be logical that they also reach the Dragon Isles if they're somewhere in this area. Well, get this, the Vrykul spent a lot of time with dragons, and you know what that does. Probably countless millennia, they literally became the Draconid. As we know in the lore, that's how many of them were actually created. So they could literally get two birds with one stone, playable Vrykul and playable Draconid. We could get like a Vrykul playable race akin to the humans and a Draconid form akin to the Worgen. So sort of like a Dragon Worgen curse. This would be the scenario if they decided to go the route of adding it as a playable race instead of a class that every race could turn into. Might be a lot more limiting, but from a lore perspective, I think this could actually be excellent, and it could provide a ton of opportunity for really interesting lore. Exploring a new island, finding new peoples that live there, then we could have an old god curse. Maybe we discover a new old god that broke free a long time ago and we didn't know about it, that corrupted the dragons, and there is some sort of a civil war in the Dragon Isles with us joining these Vrykul dragons. Now that I think about it, it would make even more sense because, you know, remember the Vrykul actually ride proto-dragons, and there is a serious connection between the Vrykul and the dragons. On top of this, we could have the Light and the Void conflict in the background with the old gods, and really this could be a perfect race that could be added to both factions. It is possible that Rathian could be returned back to the spotlight and he could become the race leader as if he is after all, a child of Deathwing and one of the rare dragons that managed to escape the corruption, so he could lead them to not succumb to the old god curse like his father did. Well, definitely a bit outlandish. I think this concept could be incredibly interesting, and it could really be a breath of fresh air into not just the lore, but World of Warcraft as a game overall. Thank you for watching. Check out the Savannah jumping into the mall by clicking on the screen, and check out the North Academy for videos on real world history. See you next time.